Hello, everyone. Today we're going to be talking about the American political system. So, if you remember what we previously talked about, there was the American Revolution. The United States no longer wanted to be part of England, so we went to war with England and we won our independence. However, once we won, we needed a government. There was not really a government. Some of the states or the colonies had governments, but there wasn't something that the whole country had. So let's go ahead and get started. If you have any questions, raise your hand, let me know. But there's a new country and a new government. Now that the United States was independent from England, the United States had to make a new government. The colonies got together and created the Articles of Confederation to create the first government. However, the new type of government did not work. So the Articles of Confederation was the first attempt to create a government. However, the Articles of Confederation did not work. We ended up getting some ideas from it, but we're going to start off talking about the Articles of Confederation. And one important thing that you guys need to know is the difference between federal and national government versus state government. So really, the big thing is federal and national government has to do with the whole country, whereas state government just has to do with the state. So here you go. Federal, national government are laws that the whole country has. The idea is that if the federal government makes a law, the whole country has to obey that law. For instance, if the federal government says that marijuana is illegal, then it will be illegal in every state. So there are laws that the federal government makes that are illegal in every state. Doesn't matter if you go to California, if you go to North Dakota, if you go to Texas, or if you're in Virginia. There are some laws that are illegal no matter where you go. And one instance is, well, marijuana is actually not illegal in every state, but there are lots of drugs that are illegal in every state because it is federal or national government. Right? If the national government makes a law and says something's illegal, every state has to follow it. The other idea is that state government is the idea that state laws are laws a state can make. If the federal government never made a law, then the state can make a law. For instance, Virginia can make marijuana legal, but Pennsylvania can say it's illegal. And that does happen. Marijuana is illegal in Virginia, but if you were to go to California, Massachusetts, Washington State, or Colorado, it's legal there. So there are some laws that states can decide. For instance, in Virginia, you're not allowed to have there's a machine that will let you know if police are near. It's like a radar scanner, and you are not allowed to have it in Virginia. Maryland, though, you're allowed to have it. So state government is just the idea that states can make their own laws. And this is something that the new country struggled with. They didn't know whether they wanted a strong federal government or a strong state government. So now we're getting into the Articles of Confederation. American political leaders were fearful of a powerful central government like Britain's, so they created the Articles of Confederation. So Britain or England, remember, Britain and England are the same country, had a strong central government. They're really, if the king or whoever's in charge made a law, the whole country had to follow. It was a very strong central government. American political leaders made two attempts to create a weak national system of government. Significant powers were given to the states, making the national government ineffective. So the colonies, when they all got together and made the Articles of Confederation, they wanted the states to have most of the power, not the national government. However, there were several problems with the Articles of Confederation. First was it provided for a weak national government. So the national government couldn't really make laws, they didn't have very much going for it, and it gave Congress no power to tax or regulate commerce among the states. So they didn't have the power to tax, and the government needs money. If they don't have money, they can't do anything. They can't regulate trade. It's important that someone is watching over the states to make sure there's not too much trade going to certain places, to make sure everything's fair. And because Congress could not tax, the government had no money. And because the federal government had no money, they could not enforce anything. So if somebody broke the law, how are you going to arrest them? You need police. Well, police have to get paid. You need taxes to pay for the police. If someone was under attack, you need a military, but the military costs money, so you need taxes. Taxes pay for all this. And the federal government had no money, so if somebody broke the law, they couldn't enforce it, so it was pretty ineffective. There's also some more problems with the Articles of Confederation. One was that it provided for no common currency, which is money. So all the colonies had a different currency. It was difficult to trade or do business with other states. So if Virginia wanted to trade with Pennsylvania, it was difficult because they didn't have the same money. It was very different. It's not like that today. Today, if you go to Maryland, or you go to Maine, or if you go to Florida, or if you go to Kansas, you can bring a dollar bill. It's going to work no matter where you are because we have the same currency. But under the Articles of Confederation, there was no common currency, so it was very difficult for states to trade with each other. Another problem was it gave each state one vote regardless of size. So if there was one state that had 1 million people and another state that had 10 people, it didn't matter. They got one vote. So each state got one vote regardless of size, and by size referring to population. And some states had a large population while other states had a small population, which is why one vote was a problem. And there was also only one branch of government, legislative. And there was no executive or judicial branch. Executive is what the president is. Judicial is what the Supreme Court is. For those of you that took government, Supreme Court, they're in charge of making sure laws are legal. So the 3 main takeaways you need to know about the problems with the Articles of Confederation is that its inability to collect taxes. They couldn't really charge taxes, and even if they wanted to, who was going to collect the taxes? There was no way of collecting it. You didn't have money, so they couldn't force people to. There was also a lack of executive, central government to enforce the laws. So how can you enforce laws? You need people to enforce laws, and that, once again, goes back to taxes. And also the inability to regulate trade. There was no one to make sure that trade was safe, that trade was fair. So let's say Virginia, remember, had tobacco. What if they wanted to give all the tobacco to Maryland, right? That wouldn't be fair because Massachusetts would get into tobacco, New Jersey would get into tobacco, but there was no way to regulate trade, so states were doing whatever they wanted. A few other documents that are important, okay? We're no longer talking about the Articles of Confederation. Another important document is Virginia Declaration of Rights. This was written by George Mason in 1776. You guys may have seen George Mason University. It's named after him. And it stated that the government should not violate the people's basic human rights. So once again, we're talking about human rights, sort of like natural rights, and the rights that should not be violated are freedom of speech, freedom of the press, and trial by jury. So freedom of speech is the idea that you can say whatever you want to say. You can't get arrested for saying you don't like the president. You can't get arrested for saying you like England and you don't like the United States. Freedom of press, that has to do with the newspaper, which today freedom of press can also be the internet, but you can write a newspaper about whatever you want. If you want to write an article saying that the United States is the worst, or the president is the worst, or how you hate something, you have that freedom. You can talk about whatever you want. And the other one is trial by jury. That's the idea that when you go to court, a judge isn't the one who says you're guilty. It is a jury. It's 12 people from your community. Just 12 random people are selected to decide if you are guilty of a crime or innocent of a crime. Another one is the Virginia Statute for Religious Freedom. This is written by Thomas Jefferson in 1777. Remember, Thomas Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence, but he also wrote the Virginia Statute for Religious Freedom. And this supported freedom of religious exercise and separation of church and state. So this was the idea that You can be any religion you want. If you want to be Muslim, that's fine. You want to be Catholic, that's fine. You want to be Jewish, that's fine. You want to be Presbyterian, you want to be a Puritan, that's fine. You can be any religion you want. And the separation of church and state. That's the idea that the state, which is the government, cannot tell you what religion to be. And they can't force you to pray in schools. They cannot make certain, they can't make it illegal if you don't go to church. So it's just the church and the government can't mix. They have to be separate. And the last thing is the Bill of Rights and Virginia Plan, which we're going to go much more into detail with the Bill of Rights later. But these were written by James Madison. Madison consulted the Virginia Declaration of Rights, which is written by George Mason, and the Virginia Statute for Religious Freedom, which is by Jefferson, when drafting the amendments. And these eventually became the Bill of Rights. So you have to know the Bill of Rights was written by James Madison, and he was influenced by the Virginia Declaration of Rights and the Virginia Statute for Religious Freedom. If you have any questions, let me know.